Hey, Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today on Alpha Commission, we're going to review Kadena. Of course, I've been in Kadena for a very long time. I actually jumped into Kadena around 30 cents, 36 cents, somewhere really here at the very, very bottom. And then I rode it all the way up. Actually, I traded it, but I rode it all the way up to the very top, probably around $26, and then probably bailed out somewhere around 23, perhaps 21. Anyway, one of these areas up here with an astounding 5,000 to 6,000% gain on Kadena. Now, of course, this chart has since then just completely retraced. It has done the full Monty in terms of distribution, and now it just looks pretty pathetic on the floor as it just gets distributed and accumulated, looking very similar to how it looked back here in May 2021 before I picked up my bag. And so I'm not sure if this chart is ready for the next stage, but it is certainly very low and starting to look very juicy. Now let's just go ahead and see what I have on this chart, and let's see if we can kind of update any of this. We do have that range that I marked out last time we were talking about Kadena, which is this area right here, which had started to be formed, and we got a little bit of chop in that region. It came back to essentially triple bottom and then even quadruple bottom, and now we're seeing a nice push off of that quadruple bottom, which in all fairness could have easily broken down, as we had a very similar, analogous setup back here. Same thing in one of these supply areas, but of course this one was a bit more chaotic, right? So as we chop around in this area and we get that push to the top side of this region, we really are going to be looking for a breakout or potentially a breakdown. And one line that I have added on this chart is this kind of spider line here. I noticed that Kadena had reached the top of its range. If we just take this little range here, this little bit of resistance here, it reached the top of its range. And just drawing a diagonal to the top of the chart, the very top of the chart, you can see that there is the potential to be slapped down on this line in a very similar way that we were slapped down on this line a while back. So there's no guarantee that this is going to get any type of a major push out of this area. In fact, what we can see is that the measured moves have pretty much played out, where we had a nice kind of head and shoulders right here, and we got this measured move, and that was beautiful. We had a nice cup and handle right here, and we got that move, which was beautiful. And then I'm not sure what you can call this move. Maybe this is just a range breakout, right? Just a range. And so you're getting the measured move from the range breakup, which would be approximately to the top of the range since this is very mid-range, right? So basically a rectangle is what I'm talking about here. This is a rectangle formation, and the measured move is just basically the height of the rectangle. And we've just gotten that. So you would be forgiven for taking your profit on Kadena in this area, because if that is the limit of this move, and it's been the limit of this move several times, just like we've basically bottomed out here multiple times, then there is the possibility for a rejection, perhaps to the mid-range, perhaps to this kind of quarter range, before we have the opportunity for some type of breakout and move beyond this diagonal, at which point we'll be challenged if we don't just pop up there directly, but if we get slapped down, perhaps make a higher low, right? We'll be faced with this diagonal right here. And this diagonal has been pretty oppressive in our current downward area, as we've basically been under this wedge and really flat against the ground, to be honest. So Kadena has not been having a good time. It's just been accumulating, it's been distributing, but at a very good price relative to its all-time high. I don't think anyone thought that Kadena was going to grow as fast as it did, that it would have the appeal that it did, but it does seem to have a significant amount of good technology behind it, which could perhaps power at least a portion of the next generation of crypto, assuming that the Kadena bros can get their stuff together and actually make it a little bit easier to work with. Now, there are a lot of channels that talk about Kadena, and you can check them out. I believe the most famous one is probably Ryan Matta. I believe that's his name, Ryan Matta. And he just talks about Kadena daily in various rants, sometimes quite emotional. For me, this is just crypto. I'm not, I'm not emotionally invested in these things. But some people, they just like, you know, they lose their cool over some things because they're so invested in it. And he's one of those guys who are so invested in it. Not sure if he works with the team or whatnot, but he definitely communicates with them regularly. And it's good to have passionate people in whatever industry you're in, holding those responsible for developing the technology, holding their feet to the flame so that they can make potential corrections in the ease of use of that technology. And hopefully that comes to something in the next bull run. So Kadena is definitely one of those coins that I see as having potential in the next bull run, sort of like ADA and of course Bitcoin and Ethereum. But is this the right price that we want to get it at? Or is there perhaps a secret discount price lower? Personally, I would look forward to the possibility of a 80 cents Kadena, if it's possible. If we get smacked down by this line, the way that we got smacked down by this line, then perhaps what's going to happen is somewhere around $2, $1.90, $2. Kadena could perhaps find its way finally chopping down, breaking down perhaps in August, when a lot of the coins seem to look like they have certain setups for a final breakdown, where it looks like the market could perhaps finally break down to its lowest possible level in perhaps August to September. And if that's the case, then perhaps it could break lower to that 80-cent region where just accumulation could set in for real and we could be done with this distribution. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. It could be that we've bottomed out and that, any type of higher low that we put in here, perhaps that's the best price you'll ever get on Kadena. But we do see a little bit of a fight that could potentially go on here with these spidery lines that I have, these kind of spider lines. And also this distribution diagonal, which has just suppressed the chart and which we're still under, right? Even if we don't count this all-time high line. So what am I looking for a potential bullish breakout of Kadena? I'm looking for perhaps something like this, right? Just want to get out of that line. I get out of that line, right? Something like this. Really want to flip this 180 into support. This $1.80, we want to flip it into support and preferably as a breakout to this red diagonal. I know it seems like there's a whiles to go, but it could potentially be that we just pop almost vertically and do it even right here, right? And that would be kind of crazy just to use this diagonal as support and to just go vertical. But you've seen what Kadena can do in the past when it wants to pop up to one of these diagonals. It can just do some crazy things. So, of course, some people may wonder, why didn't I mention Kadena sooner in terms of a setup? But actually, I've been following Kadena for a very long time, and we've talked about it multiple times. And we did already set this level a while ago. You can see I haven't even brought this over. It's because we're just doing an update. We talked about it back here, and that would have been a great buy opportunity, right? It was in this zone. And then we had another chance and another chance and another chance. And that's just up to you whether you felt that we were going to go lower or whether you felt comfortable buying here at support. But we did get a nice 25% pop up, right? 25%. And this chart has massive potential in the long run. Okay. Does it mean that it's going to reach its all-time high? It doesn't necessarily mean that. Sorry. I know a lot of fanboys like to think that way, but you have to remember there are so many coins There are so many new technologies, and there are only so many applications that are actually dominating, the narrative of crypto. And so Kadena really has to get some killer apps that are going to dominate the narrative. I believe KDA Bet could be one of them, but that's really nichey, okay? So we need to see some serious ecosystem starting to be developed. And this technology is really great. So if you're a developer, please look into Kadena. Look to see to do something with Kadena. And then perhaps we could see that speculative all-time high that was fueled by just money printing in the United States, okay? That was just fueled by taxing the lower and middle class Americans with inflation in order to lower interest rates for investors and to print money and give free loans to billionaires and big corporations who then bought stocks and institutions that bought crypto and all of the speculative shenanigans that went into just driving this chart up prematurely before the ecosystem was ready. Now, the Katina guys, they don't have any problem with that. But in order to live up to this potential, they better start working very, very hard, right? If we want to ever see that, if we ever want to see this again, they better start living up to the promise. It's very similar to Cardano, right? Very similar to ADA. Lots of promise, but then, where's the result? Where's the result? What can I do with it? So, yeah, that's Kadena in a nutshell. This was a brilliant move. My friend Crypto Retta did call this move from approximately $1.50, $1.55-ish, right? Nice 20% there. Good job, Retta. Shout out to the AR Collective. But to see if this coin can go further, while we have all these overhead diagonals, we really do want to see it bust clean of $1.99. We want to see it hold on to $2 very strongly, and then if we can get up to here in some astonishing pump, then basically get above $2.50 and hold on from there, right? And ideally take out some of these top levels. And again, people who think that this is impossible for Kadena, just 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 don't underestimate what this thing can do. Swinging from the top of this diagonal here to the bottom, to back to the top of it, right? This is something that it can do. It did it here also on this kind of diagonal area. And so if we do this, that's not out of range. That's not out of range, okay? It's just getting slowed down. It's getting stretched out. This chart is getting distorted in this bear market. But you can see that Kadena has a lot of bullish potential and that we're really, really just at the bottom. Now, personally, I really do hope that we break down from here and that we don't pop up and that we don't reclaim those diagonals because an 80-cent Kadena is just going to be a beautiful thing. And again, the technology isn't ready. There's no problem with just leaving Kadena alone for a while just to accumulate. All right. If the whales and the big players just want to focus on some other coins that perhaps have their ecosystems really ready to pump and build strong narratives around immediately, Kadena could be one of those silent killers that develops over time and just comes out of nowhere in the next cycle after being suppressed for a long time. So we'll see how that works. We'll see how that works, whether we bust up or whether we break down. But either way, I see it as a win for this coin and its long-term potential. So watch out for some smackdowns in this area. A good place to be taking your profit was that 180, 185, 187 that I was talking about. Looks like we're already getting kind of rejected there. On the 4 hour, we are quite heated up, and so it does look like we could potentially get that rejection, perhaps to the mid-range coming up shortly. Maybe one more attempt and then smacked down. Just depends how the rest of this market goes. Depends how Bitcoin goes. It looks all right. Lots of bullish money flow. Getting a little bit toppy there. Let's get the daily. Same thing on the daily. Also getting pretty hot. We are very low on volatility, but I will just note that the last time we were this low on volatility, we actually dropped to the bottom of the range on Kadena because it's a corrective move, just a corrective move, right? And so it was expansion, just to the mid range here. Are we going to go further? Stokes are still quite positive. So look for $1.60. Start being a little bit concerned at $1.60. Perhaps very concerned at $1.51. So those are two key numbers to take a look for. $1.60, $1.51. You break down below those areas. Basically the mid-range, right? You break the mid-range here, and you're probably going to test the bottom of the range. But otherwise, pretty bullishly set up for lots of potential expansion. One key difference between this drop over here and this pump that's just continuing right now is that we did have our oscillators begin to be pointing to the downside in that previous setup, whereas we're having a continuation of the upside in our current setup. So all things considered, there's a fair chance of continuation as long as we don't violate that $1.60 zone, which could perhaps weaken us. And then under $1.50, maybe we get that turnaround, right? Perhaps strongly to the downside. All right, guys, that was my review of Kadena. Bullish Kadena. Watch this space. That was your alpha for the day. Stay safe and happy trading.